So I'm so pleased to introduce to you today our webinar speaker, Brandy Matheson, who is a Grow Your Biz member in Abbotsford. And she has had a very long career. She looks young, so it must have started at age 12, a very long career in mental health. And she's really dedicated her life and her career to exploring mindfulness and meditation as a therapeutic tool for mental, emotional, and physical well-being. She has extensive training in mindfulness meditation, yoga, and is a certified mindfulness-based stress reduction teacher, medical school Center for Mindfulness and trauma-informed yoga teacher. But most of all, she's really deeply committed to these practices and truly believes in their power to enhance one's quality of life moment by moment. And as we know, all of us, everything to do with COVID-19 is evolving moment by moment. And if any of you have had the opportunity to, I just finished listening to the Prime Minister and the importance of what we can do together to really make sure that we flatten the curve. And so today, Brandy is going to share her information, and her talking points will include really what is mindfulness. It's a word we use often. Meditation, is it the same? How does it help? What's the science behind it? The role of the body, the role of the mind, and how we can practice. She calls it mindfulness is a practice of unconditional friendliness, which is interesting. So thank you, Brandy, and it's over to you for the next 45 minutes, and then we'll have some time for Q&A. But also, in the meantime, if you have a question, please put it in the chat box, and we will try to answer some of them at the Q&A period. Thank you, Brandy.
Thank you, Barbara. I'm so happy to be here. I really appreciate everyone showing up in a time like this. It says a lot. So we have a lot to kind of cover in 45 minutes. I was saying to Alicia, normally these kind of workshops or workshops are about 90 minutes long, because really what I want to offer you today is experiential practice, and then we can talk about, you know, the actual intellectual piece of mindfulness, but it really has no weight unless we're experiencing it. And then this will also include some reflections. So we're going to start with a practice, and then I'd like to open the floor, whether you use a chat box or feel, you know, courageous enough to speak out of what you noticed in that practice. And then that will lead us into some other dialogue about mindfulness, the points that Barbara mentioned. And then hopefully we'll have enough time for another practice in there, because yeah, that's what it's all about. So that's the way it's gonna work today. And one of the really wonderful things about being online for this is, I was saying to Alicia, people can join in and it's not disruptive to our own experience, because we're in our own place. That being said, hopefully you're in a spot where you will have, you know, privacy to some degree. But if you have someone coming into the space, see if you can still stay in your own experience. Hopefully you let them know that you're in a webinar, so they won't maybe be coming up to you. But see how you can work with what we perceive as distractions as being a way to come back to exploring what's happening for you in this moment. Does that sound okay? Yeah. Okay. So whenever you're ready, I'm going to invite you to come into a comfortable seated position. So you might need to adjust the way you're sitting on a chair. It can be really helpful to actually have your feet placed on the ground. You can explore where they feel most comfortable. Often the rule of thumb is heels underneath knees, but that's not always the case. You could also explore how your body feels sitting upright without the support of a chair. Or if you're choosing to sit with your back against a chair, you might want to explore what it's like to keep your upper body a little bit more lifted rather than slumping back into a chair. And this will just allow for the breath to move more freely. a little more spaciousness. And then you could place your hands comfortably on your lap, maybe keeping your fingers spread and rested. And this just is a way to help steady the body. And if it's comfortable for you, an invitation to close your eyes fully, but really gently. So noticing if there's any tension in the eyes, and then allowing the eyes to be at ease as much as possible. And you're also welcome to keep your eyes open if that's more comfortable for you. So if that is the case, the instruction here would be to release your gaze down towards the ground and maybe find somewhere on the floor that you can direct your gaze at, and then relax your gaze around that object. So seeing moves more into the background. And we're going to begin this practice with just a little exploration of what is here for you in this moment in terms of moods, emotions, states of mind. So an invitation to check in and notice, what is the dominant state of mind for you in this moment? Is it attached to any emotion or mood? You may inquire this by actually asking yourself how you are, and also noticing the tone of voice in which you may ask yourself how you are. Is there an underlying attitude or judgment? Or is that voice one of curiosity and kindness? And how do you know how you're doing? Is it a mental knowing? Or can you physically feel how you're doing within the framework of your body? And so now an invitation to maybe draw your attention more in towards your body and begin to explore and see if there's any dominant sensations, areas of the body that are just naturally calling your attention. Maybe there's tightness, tension, constriction, heaviness. Or maybe you're feeling a sense of lightness or ease or openness. So if exploring your body in this kind of way is not accessible to you in this moment, another way of experiencing being in your body is to bring your attention to parts of the body that are maybe making contact with the ground, or a surface like the chair, and noticing sensations there. So starting to experience the body in perhaps a different way than you have today, maybe your whole life. So what is it like to really be in your body? And maybe as you connect more intimately there, how you're doing is revealed more clearly. And as you continue to explore your body, connecting to all the different sensations that might be present, an invitation now to shine light on the experience of your body breathing. So knowing that your body is being breathed. You may find it helpful to initiate this awareness of breath by actually taking a few longer, more expansive breaths. If you have any tension or apprehension in the body, you may find with each kind of slower, more relaxed exhales, it gives permission for your body to release. And the emphasis here is gives permission, so we're not forcing the body to do anything. that it doesn't naturally want to do. And then after you take a few rounds of this breath, exploring what it's like to be with your body breathing in a natural way. So allowing your body to breathe as it wishes. And you may notice that the length of the breath changes, the depth of the breath changes, the texture, the shape. Maybe the breath becomes softer or more shallow, more rigid. And as best you can, just accepting how your body is breathing. And now with a continual connection to your breath and your body, to even any emotions or mental states that might be kind of appearing, an invitation to explore the sense door of sound. So now directing your attention towards the experience of hearing. Knowing that hearing is happening. This hearing may include the sound of my voice. It may include sounds within the space that you're in, even the sound of your own body breathing sometimes can be heard, or the sounds outside of your space, beyond the four walls. And noticing what happens to your breath and your body as you make contact with the sense door of sound. Just as it is. You may notice the tendency of mind to be drawn towards certain sounds, to find certain sounds preferable, placing likes or dislikes on what's being heard. And noticing what happens when that can be seen but also be dropped. And you can go right back in to the ever-changing flow of hearing, of sounds that are coming and going without effort. So whenever your attention wanders, an encouragement to come back into this very moment. This body that's steady and stable. This breath that is felt with ease. And the sounds that are received unobstructedly. It's just what's happening. And then before I ring the bell here, an invitation to now investigate once again how you are in this moment. Has it changed? Is it still the same? And how do you know how you're doing? Is it a mental knowing? Or now, with greater attentiveness to the body, can you feel it within the framework or landscape of your body? And is there greater receptivity or acceptance towards how you are in this moment than maybe there was in the beginning? And so in a few moments, I'll ring the bell, and an encouragement here to still stay in this space of relative stillness, of connectivity to your breathing body, your breathing, hearing, feeling body. To also awareness of any states of minds or emotions or moods that may be present, held in this container of acceptance, of allowance, giving that full permission to be exactly how you are. And then before you begin to move your body, maybe you want to explore taking a longer in-breath and letting your body move in any way, but really still sensing in to that movement of the body that naturally arises. And then as you're ready to open your eyes, perhaps just opening them just enough so you can start to experience that sense of sight without adding anything to it right away. So just notice that seeing is starting to take place more vividly. And then you can maybe even feel your eyelids lifting, if that's possible, or just the knowing of it. So, as I mentioned just at the beginning here, I'd like to open the floor before we go into what really mindfulness is, this practice, to what you noticed in this opening practice. What was most dominant for you? What did you see that maybe you didn't see previously to this morning, or, you know, up until that moment? So anything that you notice, maybe the sensations in your body, breath, your state of mind, emotions, moods, sounds, anything that was noticed in that round. Even the mind wandering, the inability to maybe hone it back in. So whatever you notice. Okay, so should I click the chat here so I can look here?
Yeah, you can open that if you'd like, and I am unmuting everybody.
Okay, awesome. So I think there was someone who said, oh, it just doesn't stop wandering. So Opal mentioned that her brain just doesn't stop wandering, kept finding thoughts drifting off to everything but my body and my breath. Who else had that experience? If we can be honest, especially if we're new to this, it's like, yeah, we recognize like, wow, the mind does not want to stay in the present moment. And actually the body, and this is where we're going to talk about it because it's so important, is for even though we're you know, in this body, been gifted this body at birth to the very end, we also, you know, can have a strange relationship to it. And we're not really as connected to this body as we think. And so our mind's not used to, you know, resting there. It's like an unfamiliar place. It doesn't really know where to go. But that's really awesome. It's so great to notice that the mind is wandering. So if you noticed your mind wandering, you're doing it right, okay? So I want to just dispel one major myth of meditation practice, particularly in the realm of mindfulness meditation, which is insight meditation, that we're not trying to clear the mind of all thoughts. That clearing of the mind may happen when we can connect our attention long enough to an experience in the present moment, like the breath or the body. Maybe there's a moment that there's an absence of thought. It's not the purpose. That's a beautiful moment. It can be a restful moment. But what we really want to see is the mind moving. And then ultimately our relationship to that wandering mind. So I'm going to ask here for those that are putting that, you know.
Sorry, Brandy, sorry, your voice has now been cut off, so it's echoing. I don't know if it's just me, but it's try speaking again.
Okay.
Just repeat that last sentence. Your mind.
So, I was gonna say, I want to just touch upon the attitude that we're meeting that wandering mind. Is that better?
Yes, something that wrong. So just
okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for letting me know, Barbara. So I noticed that there's a few more comments about, you know, the mind and the monkey mind, the restless mind. So I'm curious to know, for those that notice the mind being distracted, what was the attitude that you're meeting that distracted mind? What did you notice? Was there impatience? Was there frustration? Was there some judgment that my mind shouldn't be doing this? Was there an idea I'm doing this wrong? Just curious. Annoyance? Yeah? So this is a really important thing to see, because now we're looking at the more subtle aspects of mind that we aren't normally in tune with in our day-to-day life. And if we notice that in, say, a practice like this, when we are sitting in stillness and intentionally paying attention to what's going on, you sure as bet that quality of mind, that attitude is showing up in other experiences, which isn't always so helpful. Now, we can often say, like, you know, being judgmental and critical towards ourselves, though we think it can serve a purpose, you know, we can notice that it's actually not the most helpful as we think it is. And actually, yes, Barbara,
the same thing. Your voice is cutting in and out. I'm wondering, it's distorting again. So we need to I don't know if it's on our end or your end. Sorry, Brandy, but
yeah, because I don't know.
You're fine now. You're fine now.
I'm fine now. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I can hear you guys fine. So maybe if I come a little closer to the computer, is that getting better?
Yes, please.
Come closer to the screen? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So, so this, as I was saying, watching the attitude of the mind that's actually trying to pay attention is really insightful for us, especially in our day-to-day life. Then we can start being more aware of, like, when are we bringing a critical or, you know, some judgment to our experience that might not be necessary. Most of the time it's not necessary. So I just want to see if there's anything else that I said. I feel annoyed. I love how my mind wanders and the ability to come back. So as I said to, you know, everyone, as long as you notice your mind wandering and you brought it back, that is the biggest piece of this practice. It's the coming back. And it's the coming back with gentleness, with patience, with cultivating, you know, these kind of qualities of heart that are really kind. And that's where we start to really experience a shift in how we're relating to ourselves. So I'm curious to know, did anyone else not, like, say, we're not able to feel any sensation in the body at all, or did everyone have some experience of the body in that practice? Yeah? And what kind of experiences did you notice in your body when you brought your attention there?
Yeah, I noticed stress in my shoulders. I didn't realize I was so tense until I started thinking about the body.
So not noticing tension, right, that was there until you start bringing your attention to. And it looks like Carol as well said heaps of stress, tightness, a heaviness, chest was very tight. Yeah. And anyone else have any other experience?
For me, it was my my annoyance at myself that I do so much shallow breathing. I have difficulty breathing. That's why I don't do yoga. I can't breathe properly. And so for me, it's always about shallow breathing. And it's only when I really am conscious of taking a deep breath that it feels better. And I know I need to practice that, but it's always shallow breathing for me.
And so you say something so important there, Barbara, is that there is an idea that your body should be breathing in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, but it's hard to mentally remember that as you go on day to day. I'm always breathing shallow breath breathing.
And
so that's something I have to work on, but I've been trying to work on it for the last 50 years.
As one of my teachers would say, the founder of the mindfulness-based stress reduction program, he says, as long as you're alive, your body's been breathing just fine for you.
Okay.
So Barbara, so the one key component of mindfulness, so I'm going to actually just go into a little definition. I would say my working definition of mindfulness, which is learning how to pay affectionate attention, okay? And affectionate with like the biggest A possible, meaning the sense of care towards what is happening. Inwardly, and when we say inwardly, our inner world, our body, our mind, like what we're thinking, our emotions, just anything that's kind of happening. So paying affectionate attention inwardly and outwardly with acceptance. So we're just actually paying attention to how things are without trying to fix it, change it. We notice that we're judging it. We notice that we want to change it. And then we explore what it's like to let go of that control. I like to think of mindfulness sometimes as like hanging back in a hammock and going, this is it. This is my experience right now. How can I be with it? So how can I be with the tightness in the chest, the tightness in the shoulders? So what happens when we are stressed and our body starts to contract? We start to have an immediate reaction. We don't even know what's happening, but this is a mechanism of the mind for survival to resist, to go, oh, I don't like this, I don't like this. And so often we then distract by doing something else to not pay attention. Once again, this is happening on a very subconscious level, sometimes unconscious. We don't even know it's happening. Or we end up like adding to it, like, I don't like this. So just even as your experience, Barb, about noticing you had a difficulty being with your natural breath because there was an idea of, I don't like how my body's breathing. Guess what happens when we do that? More constriction. As soon as we start to, resist an experience, there's actually, a contraction that happens mentally and physically, which then creates more stress. And so maybe we can notice this. And this is one really useful thing that I like sound as being another anchor instead of the breath all the time because the breath gets kind of all the limelight in meditation, but the body and sound are really, really helpful anchors. And the one great thing about sound is at least it feels like it's outside of you, even though we're only hearing because we have a body. So we could argue that hearing's actually happening inside, but that there is a little bit more of kind of space for our attention to go that helps to just regulate the breath a little bit. So we can kind of let, go of like, trying to control the breath. If we can't get any, kind of ease in the breath, not that we're forcing it, but if it's creating more stress than it is ease, then we can bring our attention to another anchor. And same with the body. We could, stay with really heavy sensations of our awareness in our chest or tightness here. But if there's no space around it, if we start to notice a more like a closing in on it, then it might not be helpful. We might not be able to have, the strong enough attitude to accept it. So then we can bring our attention elsewhere. And then if we come back to it, I bet you'll notice it has changed. Because the one amazing thing about all of this, which with mindfulness, and especially in this day and time, that I think all of us are experiencing and practicing in our own right, is the ability to be with change. So one of my other teachers actually defines mindfulness as being intimate with all things without controlling. So how can we learn how to be one with what's happening without trying to control, meaning dropping into the flow of life, that in knowing very well it's changing. And we can experience this change in a very direct way by paying attention to our body, by paying attention to our breath. We'll notice sometimes that there'll be a certain thought that arises that creates a wave of experience in our body. Maybe a wave of anxiety, maybe, you know, a wave of tension, or a breath might start to get, as you say, a little more shallow. And then a few moments later, you might notice as you scan your attention through, oh, that's now gone. The thought's gone, that feeling's gone. And so this really helps to develop our resiliency to being able to bear what we feel is unpleasant. It allows us to actually be interested in it and to embrace it. Why? Because we know it's changing. We know it's changing. And so we don't need to be scared of it. And I like to sometimes think of mindfulness as being, you know, a practice of learning how to really be with what's uncomfortable and what's unpleasant, and have a relationship to these parts of our experience of being human that, you know, we can have so many ideas about, and so much judgment and shame and guilt, and like this internal struggle that we can have with our own experience of being human, which is so silly in some ways, because it is fundamentally, you know, an experience of being human. We can't control, you know, what is arising, you know, in our bodies, in our minds, in our hearts. We can start to incline, especially our hearts, and this is where the heart comes into mindfulness. We can notice that the mind has a particular attitude, and then we can start to incline it towards more wholesomeness, towards more kindness. And this is a real act of mindfulness. It's a part of the practice. But we can't initially control, say, what initially arises. So that initial judgment, we can't control that. But then we can go, judgment. And then maybe meet that judgment with more kindness, with more acceptance, and then allow ourselves to feel, oh, tightness. Can I be with that? You know, can I notice maybe it changing? Can I feel that? And then in that moment that you notice it's changing, it's like, oh, there's a moment of peace. There's a moment of ease. So I'm curious to know, does anyone have any? I said a lot, and I'd love to just open the floor here if there's anything that is, you know, percolating or being spun around that you're processing as I'm saying this, whether it's making sense or not. There's no silly question or reflection.
Brandy, I think there are lots of questions. Patricia, you had one. And then I know about Sherry Lee had one about the conscious and unconscious mind. So Patricia, go ahead.
Yeah, the one reason that I've always been uncomfortable with meditation is because I easily get anxiety. So you give my moment just a couple of seconds to itself without something else to focus on, it will automatically try to find some issue to obsess about. So I find meditation uncomfortable because my mind automatically will find a problem and my anxiety increases. So should I be trying to move through that and turn away from it, or just feel it and try to wait for it to pass?
So that's such a great question, Patricia. And there's a few different techniques that I would suggest with anxiety particularly. You know, I think that the first thing to explore is, can I be in relationship with this anxiety? And can I, instead of labeling it as my anxiety or start to identify with the thoughts that are causing anxiety, one really helpful thing is to notice that, oh, you know, that when this thought arises that has an undercurrent of anxiety that you notice, thinking, it's just a thought. And then if it causes a wave of sensation in your body, because anxiety is actually a physical response, okay? Two, often future thinking. Not always. We can get anxiety about the past, but a lot of our kind of chronic anxiety is just the anxiety of life and worrying about, you know, what's to happen. And so we can just even touch, you know, our attention, like thinking, or planning, and come back to either, if the body feels too intense, you can go to sound, feet on the ground. Anything that's really grounding can be very helpful, you know, opposed to just staying with those maybe intense sensations. Like bring your attention to a part of the body that maybe feels, you know, really steady and centered. And so that's one technique. Now, if there's a lot of anxiety, one of the other things is like move enough so you can get that kind of anxious energy out. And this is where walking is great, but we're not walking spinning our shit. We're not using it to use that to process. We're walking and knowing that we're walking. We're walking, we're feeling our feet on the ground, we're feeling the breeze on our face, we're bringing our attention back to what's happening in the moment. Maybe we're noticing the beauty of where we're walking, we're looking, you know, being on the lookout for those things that might bring us some, you know, joy or gratitude in the moment, but we're not sitting there walking or engaging in exercise just to like spin our story around. So that can be really helpful, but I definitely think that, you know, exercise, and I'm speaking this from my own experience because I've been a chronic exerciser my whole life. And before I came into mindfulness and I hit a really stressful time in my work career and in my life, exercise is actually becoming more detrimental to my nervous system, to my overall health, than it was helpful. Like I was stressing my nervous system out. And so I remember when I was seeing a naturopath and he said, you need to start doing yoga every other day. And my jaw almost dropped. I was like, what? Yeah, no. And so anyways, that was like my initial reaction. But the more I started to practice meditation, the more, and like stillness, the more I've seen how this is so much more helpful because I'm not running away. And then, of course, it helped me when I did engage in activities like exercise, to be working out, to be very intentional about it, to be connected to my body, not as a form of escape. We don't want to use it as a form of escape. Remember, mindfulness is like paying affectionate attention to what is happening right now, you know, becoming intimate with our life as it's unfolding right now. And so you definitely, want to explore what that's like and what is it to have in a relationship with anxiety. Can anxiety become a friend? Can it be seen as a protective mechanism? It's there for a purpose. It is. It serves a role in our life. It might not always be helpful, and we all know it's not pleasant, but it's there for a reason.
So that might tie into Melissa's question where she said she was feeling guilty. That's the whole guilt thing, like I should be working right now. I'm thinking of all the work I should be doing rather than doing this. I think that happens for a lot of us where we're going, oh, and that is part of anxiousness. It's like, is this, you know, I should be there, not here. Does that touch on yours, Melissa?
Hi, I've just unmuted. Yeah, it does, especially at this time of day. Which again, I had another question, just kind of when's the most ideal time to kind of check in with the
to meditate?
Yes. Okay, so I'll answer your first. Yeah, awesome, Melissa. Thank you. I'll answer your first question, which was seeing meditation, like other things being more of a priority. Okay, so this, of course, you know, we can, you know, make up any excuse on why not to engage in things that are really wholesome for us because other things become a priority. But one thing that I think is really helpful to reframe the way we think of meditation practice is that it's actually going to make us more effective in what we're doing. When we can take even a few moments to work with our mind to actually notice what's happening. I'm going to give you a quick, I brought my snow globe here because I think this is a great image. But when you think of like when we're consumed with, you know, our work for the day, our life, our kids, our family, if this is our brain, this is what's going on, okay? And so when we're in this state, which we're in this state a lot, when our mind, our monkey mind that we call it, is just kind of going, can you see, like, it's pretty difficult to see clearly, right? Everything's shaken up, things are moving around, there's not a lot of clarity. I think we can all agree when we work our best is when our mind is grounded, is focused, is centered. And so mindfulness gives us this opportunity to, I like to say, a soft, even though we need a hard surface for the goal, but a soft surface for our attention to land, to give a few moments to go, oh, okay, there's all this stuff happening, but I'm going to try to re-ground my attention, re-anchor it to the present moment. So maybe I can get a little bit of clarity, you know, for that moment. Not about clearing the mind, not about it, but more or less like just some calmness that needs to happen. So then we can go into our next moment, you know, fresh and engaged. And so answering your question number 2, Melissa, is I don't think there's any ideal time because everyone's different, you know, and some people do better with like a longer practice first thing in the morning, or some people do better with little short practices throughout the day. It doesn't take much time. We're talking even this moment, you know, in that opening practice I did, that was longer than some other practices that can happen, which can literally be a minute. You could sit for like a minute, pull yourself away from the computer and notice what's happening in your body, notice what's happening in your heart, your mind, be aware, try to bring your attention back to feeling, you know, the body, the breath or sounds as a way to anchor your attention, and then that's enough. Of course, with any extended practice time, the more we're gonna get to see. The longer we can sit, I like to say shit again, sorry, I do swear from time to time, but the more that we can kind of sit in the center of our life in a direct way, the more that we can really see. And I noticed someone mentioned about the unconscious and the subconscious here that I'll briefly touch on. Did you, Shirley? So the unconscious, it's impossible to know the unconscious because it's unconscious, okay? So we can't know anything that's unconscious because it's unconscious. Subconscious is that sub-level of awareness that we have. And then that's that space that we're able to access more when we have more curiosity, interest, and when we can, you know, just kind of tame the mind enough to watch it more clearly. So just as this example, I'm going to give this again. When you even put the snow globe down, it's not that it clears completely. And as I said, we don't want the mind to be completely clear because then we have nothing to work with. So it's not that we're purposely thinking, but we're going to notice that thoughts are going to come up. And then so we can see all these little snowflakes or whatever, all these little thoughts, but they're not flooding in where there's no clarity around it. They start to slow down enough. It's like, oh, this thought arises, and then there's like this reaction to it that I have. You know, you start to notice those different layers of how you're meeting that experience. One way to work with emotions, or especially anxiety-filled thoughts, is like, what's underneath this thought? You know, this thought keeps coming up. It keeps, you know, it's gaining momentum. We're hooked into it. And the reason we get hooked in is because there's actually something underneath, an emotion that is trying to be felt. It's trying to be heard, it's trying to be seen, but we're not giving the space to feel it. Why? Because it feels unpleasant. Totally. Any turbulent emotion doesn't have usually a pleasant feeling tone. And we're scared that, ooh, if I turn towards it, it's just going to feel way worse, or it's going to stay, when actually it does the opposite. So we want to go, what's underneath, with curiosity and kindness, and can I hold that there? And one practice that I will just give, and I'm sorry, Melissa, I realize I just kind of got off on a tangent about, you know, the time of day. I'll touch back on that, is when working with anything that's really difficult, mind states, emotions, loving kindness practice, like an intentional practice of like offering yourself some kindness, is really helpful. I just used this. I watched very ignorantly, because I'm very sensitive to this stuff. a documentary on Ted Bundy. Not helpful, it was interesting, but I'm very sensitive and my mind got hooked in. Like all night, every thought that came to my mind was of Ted Bundy. You can imagine, not restful, not calming, really anxiety. Every time that thought came to mind, I would say, may you be safe, may you be happy, may you be well, whatever like kind of words I'd say every time throughout the whole night. It proceeded to yesterday morning. I sat with the anxiety and I just sat with so much kindness. And then all of a sudden it lifted. And it was like literally this cloud lifted. Ted Bundy left my heart, thankfully, rest in peace, even though he was a tortured soul. But, you know, this is how I'm saying that it can be helpful to work with this stuff. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. I realize that too, but yeah, there's certain times. Yeah. So yeah, definitely, you know, these are really helpful ways that we can work when we're really triggered by these things that really get us. And they don't even need to be big things. You know, we have stress reactivity all through the day. And the more that you become aware of like what's happening, the more you're gonna see it. And I'm sorry to like say that to you. It's not great PR for mindfulness. The more you're aware, the more you get to see suffering, yay! But the thing is that you get to have a relationship with suffering.
I think Carol brings up a great point, which is she watches a comedy before she goes to bed. And I think there's a saying that I've always loved is he who laughs, lasts. And it's you know, just your comparison of watching a horrible documentary or a thriller is how do we move away from that? We know when we want joyfulness, and that is, thanks Carol for that comment, because I think it's very helpful that we have control of what we watch, we have control of what we read. That doesn't mean to say we're in a box that we don't pay attention, but we can choose what news channels we want to listen to. Here I am preaching, but I think that is part of mindfulness. Is
absolutely
what do we choose? Yeah. We have a voice and we can choose.
Absolutely, and then you touch upon something there. And I actually did watch a comedy after that documentary, by the way, because I knew it didn't help. It was just too deep in me, and I also knew that was, you know, I'm sensitive to that stuff, and I learned. But you know, you did touch on something that we do have choice. We can't control what's arising as much as we want to. We have very little control of what's going to arise. I didn't choose to want to think of Ted Bundy every 30 seconds. It just is what came up for whatever reason. How you respond to it, that's where we start to have choice. We have active choice in how we respond to what's arising. We have a moment of stress, we know a moment of this, and then we have a choice. We can keep spinning, we can keep going, we can let it gain momentum, we can shake it up even more, or we can go with great kindness, with gentleness. Oh, come here, in that really loving way. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the biggest maybe punchline that I wanna, you know, run home with you today, guys. And I'd like to end with a practice. I would really love to end and do another practice with you, you know, about developing this unconditional friendliness to the whole totality of our human experience, to all of it. How can we hold it in this loving way? We know that when we meet things with more aggression, you know, it causes more aggression. It's not the antidote for aggression. You know, for hardness, the antidote isn't more hardness, it's softness. And so this is, you know, this practice helps us see all of that, sees those ways in which we meet that initially, and then we have choice. We have choice. And maybe it's a moment to moment. Like as they say, sometimes really it gets their hooks in it, you know, an emotion, an idea hooks in us, and we might need to be very intentional and work with it moment to moment to moment until we notice it's so. So I would love to go into a final practice with you ladies, if that's okay. And are we okay to go a few minutes over so I can have, so we can do it for 10 minutes? Is that okay? Are you guys comfortable with doing a 10-minute practice? Can you carve it out in this point of time and see it as a priority? Just this once, just this once. So with that being said, if you do need to leave, the wonderful thing is you won't be a distraction if you go. And I just want to thank you so much for your time and presence and engagement in this exploration. So whenever you're ready, again, an invitation to settle into your body. Inviting your body towards stillness. So notice what it's like to hold your body in stillness, but through the door of care, of gentleness, not of force or holding it there against its will, but as an act of kindness. And you may choose to begin this practice by anchoring your attention to your breath, by taking first a few longer breaths, if that's available for you. And there's no judgment to how your body receives that breath. We just allow the body to receive it in any way that it does. And then as your breath regulates back to a natural rhythm, so an encouragement here to allow your body to just breathe. You may notice that the breath, even if it's short, it's shallow, if it's not quite the texture or depth or shape that you like it to be, that there is an embodiment of friendliness within the breath. That the body continues to breathe for you, whoever you are. That one's still probably yet to be discovered. And if you spend some time here directing your attention to the breath, and yet there still doesn't feel enough calmness or ease within it or enough friendliness, then allowing your attention to move. Maybe to another part of your body. Maybe there's somewhere in your body that feels like home, that has characteristics of peace, of stability, of ease. And if that place is found, then allowing your attention to harmonize there. Allowing this part of the body to become that soft place to land your attention. And if you're finding in this moment that the body or the breath, they're both not as available to you or as comforting for you to bring your attention to, then by all means, explore the sense experience of hearing. And you could explore here what it's like to allow your whole body to hear. Your whole body is receiving sound right now. Even your eyes, your nose, your chest, all of it is receiving sound. It's not just your ears. Your whole body embraces sound. And for some people, it's helpful to combine the breath, the body, and sounds all in one, in more of this all-encompassing awareness. So you can watch your mind with great care every time thoughts are recognized. You've just become aware. And that this is your opportunity to notice the mind, that beautiful capacity to think, to create. You can label it just as thinking, thinking. While inclining the observing mind towards great kindness, towards this mind that wants to be in other places, and knowing that the present moment is maybe not as familiar, and that's okay. The more we learn to abide in it, the more familiar, the more known it becomes in some degree. But also, as we direct our attention to the present moment, we start to experience the universal experience of change. So no two moments are the same. So an invitation or an encouragement here to dwell in an experience of friendliness, unconditional friendliness, or to call up that quality to meet whatever is arising. If a strong emotion arises, a wave of intense sensation in the body, an aversiveness to a particular sound or thought, friendliness as the antidote. And also that very gentle but yet firm guiding of the mind back to the whatever anchor you've chosen to land your attention towards. May that be the body, the breath, or sound, or combination of all three. And then asking yourself again with great sincerity, with great interest and care, how you're doing, how you're feeling in this moment. And as you connect to however you are, understand it's changing. So you can let go of the hooks as much as possible, the identification towards however you are, even if it's pleasant, it's changing. So that will allow that space for another experience to be seen. So when one emotion changes to another, there's no grasping. There's no trying to get back how you once felt or trying to control how you should be feeling. It's just how you're feeling in this moment. And it can be met with the kindness of the breath, with the groundedness of the body, with the friendliness of sound. Again and again and again and again. So I'll invite you for the last few moments of this practice, ladies, if you're comfortable in trying this on, to place your hands, maybe both hands or one hand, around the center of your body. So maybe one hand makes contact with your heart or your belly, wherever it feels comfortable around this area of the body. And then you could explore what it's like to feel your body being breathed into your hands. That great gentleness there. And noticing what it's like to offer that very generous act of kindness, of care towards this body, this being right here that we can call as me. And meeting that being with as much openness and grace and gentleness. And also seeing that the universal nature experience of being human. So what you're feeling and going through is not separate than any other being in this world. And so as you're feeling care towards your own being, if it's possible, knowing that's a process, doesn't always happen, that there is this deep knowing of the connection to all beings. So I'll end here with just a few love and kindness phrases that you could repeat in the privacy of your own mind and heart, and staying in connection with your body. You know, or you could just hang out and just receive those words however they land for you. So, may all beings be safe from inner and outer harm. May all beings be well in body, heart, and mind. May all beings live in peace and harmony. And may we all be free. May we all be free. May we all be free. So in a few moments, I'll ring the bell, and I'll invite you just to stay in this space wherever you are for the whole duration of the bell here. So we're coming to a close of this practice and time together. And just noticing what's present for you here. And so once again, when you're ready to allow movement to come back into your body, staying with the body through that movement as your eyes are really open, maybe having that really kind of gentle opening, call it infant eyes, might take a few times to open them. So I just want to thank everyone here for showing up, for being a part of this time together, and this practice that I really believe in this time and space we're in the world more than ever, we really need. I know I really need it. I need it all the time. But you know, collectively, how can we use even this time that we've been given in new ways that might really serve us and open our hearts? So I just want to thank everyone. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Brandy. Alicia, stop recording. And I just want to add,